Okay, I thought I'd share some more corals with you now from around the ocean and maybe look at a few fish and other things too, just discuss these plants that are from up under the ocean that really people don't know anything about. Quite often, skeletons of corals are sold, or used to be sold. I'm sorry, it's illegal now, from the islands and the Caribbean and around the world. And black coral and stuff like that has been well, documented as being something that is cherished. And it got to the point to where it was wrecking reefs and sponge divers and things like that also, which has caused a lot of problems with other reefs. But what people don't know is that it's not just sponges and those type of corals. And there is a million type of variations of corals if we go with the variations on a theme of a single type, and then we look at the color variations that you can get in between it. You can probably get up close to a million different types of corals. I myself documented over 1,200 types, and that was types that we were selling of variations. Now, sure, one might be forest green and the other lime green, but that actually is, that color that's in there is a live creature type of algae called zooxanthellae. And it imparts the different colors in the different ways. And one of the things that I could never track down and make an exacting, I could find out why it was separated, but I couldn't find out why this whole thing wasn't pink or this whole thing wasn't blue whenever I've got another one over there that's all pink and all blue. And if I put them next to each other, does that zooxanthellae get in there? And certain zoos and corals, and they only accept certain colors and into certain parts of their body. One part is one color, one part is another. And generally this one part, like the tubes on this and the fringes that are pink, are always green, but around that eye that looks bluish there, or the tube, it could be different colors. Now quite often they're green, but quite often they're different colors. This is a type of flower pot coral I got in, and as I remember here looking at the video, I had just gotten them in and put away all the corals, which after getting them in from the airport, uh, I would get a shipment of boxes that are well packed with a lot of natural ocean seawater inside them in bags, inside of styrofoam, trapped up like something that would keep human body parts alive and so on. And it was fast shipped as the quickest route straight to me from Bali, which is where these corals come from. But in this tank, there's a bunch of corals from Australia, just all kinds of different places, even the Caribbean, which that orange thing right in the very top comes from there, but we're going to get there in a minute. But they would ship it to me, and it took pretty much a day to get to me. But also, like Santa Claus, we were going against sunlight and everything, so you have to figure that into effect. But we would get them in day and a half or so from packing to unpacking in reality of time. And then they start to breathe and respirate. These are live corals. They react to your touch and things like that, or a fish nipping at them and so on for protection, and retract or recede into their skeletons and so on if they have them, or sting. A lot of these things have a sting to them, and you think of roses as having a thorn, but that's on the stalk, not necessarily on the flower. But we always know about anemones sting, or probably you didn't know a little bit, and clownfish rub in that, and they create a slime protein that actually matches that anemone. And each different type of anemone, not color or anything, but different total class of anemone, they have to start over and get stung a little bit, and their body secretes a natural slime protein that ends up matching the anemone. And then the anemone, of course, never stings itself, and so you wouldn't ever hurt yourself, and therefore the anemone can go free gratis scooting around through the anemone, and they hang around it for protection and grabbing food. And if any fish comes along, like a barracuda at the starting of Finding Nemo, they can ditch it in the anemone, and he'll get stung up trying to go after him. So let's look at a few of these, and I'm probably going to pause it quite a bit through this somewhat, like I do, but just to give you some idea of what it is that you're looking at. And these, as I remember, we called these Supergirl. Now there was Spider Girl. No, Supergirl. Yeah, this was Supergirl. There is a Superman version of this where it's not hot pink and blue and pastelish somewhat, but a little bit more red, pink, and blue. And people called that Superman, and they called the zoanthid Superman that looked like that. And you're trying to get names so people have cute names and everything. And so this was the more feminine version of it, an incredible color, and really the tips just on this became hot pink. And I mean, it is like Pepto-Bismol hot pink. Another thing about what you're seeing here is you're seeing a lot of blue lighting that's on it, some on the edge of purple, some on the edge of blue, and full spectrum daylights. You notice whenever you go in the ocean, as soon as you get a depth to it at all, everything turns blue. Well, the natural sunlight is all full spectrum, but whenever you do, that yellow, orange, red part of it starts to die real quickly, and blue is so strong, even though we don't notice it, that it makes the ocean look blue. It's also why the sky's blue. It's scattered light, and red wavelengths of light at that end of the spectrum are very shatterable and very small wavelengths, whereas blue is very penetrative and long wavelengths of light, and it makes it through. And so that's why you see something like that. But then again, there aren't a lot of blue fish or a lot of blue corals, and you think a lot of them would be, and they would just disappear. But in more cases than not, fish are not in any way trying to be hidden or camouflaged, although there's camouflaged forms that they can go into, and some fish can even change their color almost at an instant and turn into a blotchy form to where you'll lose its outlines, like fox-face fish and stuff. And eventually I'll show you something like that. But let's look through these. So I haven't even gotten a look yet. And what we're looking at up there are Rickordia mushrooms, and they're super orange Rickordias, some with purplish centers and green centers and lime green centers and a few blue ones. This is a type of brain coral that comes only out of Australia's Great Barrier Reef called Acanthastria. And what was neat about this one is that it has this weird pastel pink, red, mauve color or whatever around the rims of each one of these donut loops that are on it. And it swells up a little more. It's just kind of puffed. All that is puffed, but there's a star skeleton down below it. Acanthastria means that it had little stars, astria. And then it has a grape ring, and then the inside of it is two-toned electric kryptonite green and a darker green color swirled. Some even has some yellow spots in it like this, and blotches in it like you can see in here and here. And then the mouth that's right in the center of it, which ingests food and breathes, and it respirates to fill up the whole balloon that each one of these things are, and is also this electric grape color. So it's real neat. Exotic colors and forms. Now this one is wicked. As you can tell, it's a little bit different color, but it has what's called candy striping around onto it. So it has this pinwheel or candy wheel stripe around it. And then where that one right there went to a grape color, this one goes almost to that one's mauve color versus a different red, if you can make it out in the shot. The mouths on this one are red, and then it has gold and green swirly, half and half, some of them, and blotched that are green and gold. And so it's a rainbow eye akin. This is a candy stripe, so then you have to give it a name. And then you go with something, so it's pink candy striped, red, rainbow-eyed akin lord. Oh my God, they get these names going on. But it's a way to describe it. You can, so you might have a good idea of what's going on, but that's the reason I did these videos. These videos would go out to all the customers and stuff, and when you went to my site to buy corals, and they would be like, oh, I want that thing there that was called candy apple, blah, 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 blah. This comes from Australia's Great Barrier Reef, and they were famously named after Lord Howe Island, which is right near there. And here's a type of cool mushroom. We'll just let this go ahead and go. Now these zoes that are showing up right here, they call these Rasta zoes, and it's neat because they've got that ring effect, and with the colors that are right there, you can easily see why they would call something like that. And this coming up is dragon soul favias, and they have that eye around them. And this is an aqua version center of it, which is fresh different forms of green that they can have. This is really an aqua bluish turquoise eyed form of it. And I've already cut it into pieces, and you can see some of this little slime hanging off of it. They have a slime coat to them. If you touch the skin of this thing, it feels like a wet balloon, a snotty wet balloon, most all of them. But if you push it all, you can see their skeleton has a serrated edge inside of it. If I had a dead one, you could really see it. And if you go to pushing on it or grab it by your thumb and mush, it'll kill head after head. And sometimes that can just start killing the whole thing off. And you have to do a savior type thing because it's pseudo-colonial. Each one of these you can cut separate and it'll all start a brand new colony from. But when they grow colonial. Like grass in your yard, like a lot of flowers and things do, and so on. There, got into focus real quick. There's a special type of clownfish known as a snowflake clown, and this was a black snowflake clown. They have orange ones like Nemo, but instead of the regular stripes that you see that are uniformed, still that odd color. Amperprion ocellaris. This is a cross that they've done, and then they've literally, inbred them like they do dogs and things sometimes, and ended up with odd effect, blotchy patterns. And then they kept those separate and kept breeding those together, and then you get a higher percentage of blotchy patterned ones out of the groups and some odd patterns out of that. And due to an odd patterning, they had come up with names, some more expensive than others. Oh, so these are called the nuclear greens, and they really aren't green, they're really a yellow, but they're called nuclear greens. In the top left hand corner, we're coming up on a flower pot that's pretty neat too. It's a sunset-eyed powder blue flower pot. And so you can see you can mix some of these and get a few different shapes and different colors. And just in this tank, I've only got a selection of certain types. Now that shrimp that's right there all up in your face, that's a cleaner shrimp. And he's not quite as big as your pinky, probably his body. And then those tentacles are 3 times that long. And he's a cleaner of other fish, and other fish will come down to him and lay down and let him crawl all over him and eat the parasites off him if they have anything, and basically give him a haircut and so on. But there are a lot of fish that'll eat them too. But those fish need cleaning sometimes too, so these guys are somewhat leery. And of course, he's become accustomed to me after being here just a week or two and know that I've got food and everything's okay, and they always come up attacking your fingers whenever you're trying to move corals around and stuff like that. Flower pot in the background is gorgeous. It's got this sunset eye on it, and it's really not a blue and not a green. It's that weird aqua kind of color. That's one of my favorites right here. It's called a bubble coral, and each one of those bubbles might get as big as, not a golf ball. They won't ever get as big as a golf ball. This is a blue bubble. They have purple ones. They have green ones, they have neon green ones, they have ones that have just lines down the middle of each bubble like a little stripe and no other colors. I get ones that were half blue and half green and blotched where they're fighting over which one's going to be, like a hybrid is what they call it. And we get ones in that had a different texture to them all together, which is all rivulets, and it looked like thumbprints all over them too. And they would rarely get a blue thumbprint or so on, but to get a green thumbprint, you quite often getting them. And it's such a different shape. It looks like just a little bunch of goggly balls all together versus a lot of things looking little. And you want something that has spike shapes and something that's branchy and something that's balled up and something that's bubbly and something that's, and it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing there is, but you can get some things that are extremely nice. Now this coral here cost me over $1,000 just to get it there. It's got these rainbow rims around it, and it still doesn't even show good in this shot. And each one of those little heads, of course, is a different one. People are selling the heads of this thing for over $150 of something that looks like this. And it's not doing it justice. It's just starting to open up. You can see how this area here and this area here, it's not even really opened up. And that shrimp isn't helping a bit too. For when they first start opening up, sometimes they gurge stuff out, and he gets climbing around on them, and then filling the picking on him, he'll close up. But this rainbow effect that has these green and yellow and pink swirls around it with white candy stripes to it was, oh man, you could get a hell of a lot of money out of it. Well, I was selling things like 3 and 4 head chunks for 79 bucks. Well, why? Because I was getting choice select pieces, and this thing literally had over 80 heads on it. And instead of trying to see if I could milk as much as I could out of it, I would turn around and just flip it over. I didn't make so much damn money though, but I had to keep balling and rolling and having it come through. And something that was there from 2 weeks ago, I should only have a few pieces left of, and I'm getting in new shipments, and I'm getting in new shipments. And here's something that's a little different, and something a little different, something a little different, to change your little garden that you have in your house that I've taught you how to keep going. And so you can have a trapped little ocean of the world, and not just some rock with here's a coral, there's a coral, but you can make a wonderland of corals and fish, as long as they're compatible with each other and don't eat the corals or eat each other, But there are even better forms than that, and to myself, there are forms that are so much prettier than that rainbow, but it became something that was a rare. Once I get in 30 pieces, you realize that's the only one that's kind of like that. Just like that other one only had rainbow eyes and so on. Eventually, I got the guy actually taking pictures of the corals, like I'm doing here, and he'd ship me all the corals, and then off the numbers of the pictures, I would tell him I want this one and this one, and not this one, not this one. Sometimes he would take a picture of like corals like this where there's more than one, but he would have 15 of them on there. And whenever I called in the order or two, I'd go, okay, well, we're getting into these brains that you gave me a whole big picture of. You see that one that looks like a Christmas tree, and then there's that bigger one to the right of it like that? Yeah. Oh, you want that one? No, 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 no. Right to the right of that. See that one with that pinkish, ringy kind of thing going around on it too? I'd like that one. And so I was able to hand select or, pick out certain things that I wanted. Oh, this is just so wicked. It had this peach eyeball to it, red rings around it, and then the turquoise was just so strong. And it's still kind of closed up now. It's still kind of balled up. But once it and opens up like that, you really got to see the pink eyes and stuff of it. And I remember that rare piece. I've only seen ones like this maybe 3 or 4 times out of maybe 10,000 that I've gotten in, and I'm trying to find it. So, and again, that was after they opened Great Barrier Reef. Oh, I went a little too high to see it, but I guess it's still down there a little bit. You see these little tentacly things that are all on that and sticking out of here with those little pink dots on them? It's actually sticking its tentacles out to feed. And this over here, which looks smushed in, it's really covered with tentacles. And probably one of the guys that was working for me has either squirted food in there recently or stuff, and it's turned itself already out. But it looks like it's been opened pretty good. And again, look at how gold and orange this thing. This is like neon gold tangerine. I think we named this one something to do with King Midas. But the King Midas had gold yellow streaks in it. Yeah, well, this might be it. It had yellow streaks in it, yellow streak, and there's a yellow streak. And it's gold, kind of shiny copper penny brass with even golder lines in it. Like there's different colors of gold, like red gold and stuff like that. And that's just like a little ball, about the size of a baseball maybe. And like these chunks here are the size of a baseball. What was so neat about this was that the spoking that goes around the outside of it, of your candy striping, was double thick, but half as many on this as you'd find in something like this size. And it's purple below it, and it turned from purple to a little thin red line, and then this golden orange kind of tangerine kind of color. I don't know if you can make out that difference of colors, and it's not in most focus right now. But that was real neat. And when we had versions like that, we tried to give it nicknames that were Arctic and stuff, because there was one, Celtic frost is green with that effect on it. It's something you get a lot of times. But that became real common, especially when you started getting things of this color. This one here has got a clown paint effect to it. And it's got all different kind of colors to it. But yeah, that's a standout there. And that's just like a common piece there. The big red guy here is a different type of brain, which is closely related to these. But each one of its heads will get almost the size of a baseball, but never any bigger, but usually around golf ball sized. So at least 2-3 times the size of the other ones. And it's called Acanthastria, so it's in the same family, but instead of Lord Howensis, this variation, it's called Bower Bankai, and it's named after somebody. and bower bank. This is a weird type of chalice over here, and it's called Martian nipples. And it was named before that anemone was named, or the Zos was named. So that's kind of neat, but it has the same color form. We're about to see, God, look at the size of that shrimp. Well, he looks like it. Guys, what I'm using here is an underwater camera. I'm literally in my fish tank that's about 2 foot deep and at 8 foot long by 3 foot wide, with all these corals with a big lighting system hanging 4 foot above it, shining into it. And I've cut off the top current, bristling so much, so you don't see that wiggly caustic lighting. And I'm going around with the camera doing this. There's that Bower Bankai mother colony that you just saw the pieces off of. Ooh, hope it stops it right. Yeah, look at this chalice here. Now, it's a chalice that just grows out of plate, like you saw just the one down here where it has these peach eyes on it and everything. But this one had this kaleidoscope eyes of green and gold, and the background is purple. If you, when you kick it to just daylights and you turn off the blue, I mean, it's like grapple. And a lot of them are different bisected, and there's a few in here that are exactly quartered. And even this eye splitting, it's splitting and quartered. And I think we called this one Biohazard. Grape Biohazard. Yeah, you end up with cool little names out of it. Yeah, you can really see it there. God, I didn't catch it. Let's see if I can get it right back to the moment that it is. And this doesn't do it justice at all. I had to actually dim the camera to make it to where it would pick up things and not get blurry. So I'm actually like, I've got it, I'm saying I'm out in bright sunlight, and instead of letting it auto adjust, I locked it at that point. And also blue balance is off too. What I actually had to go in here and say, well, what is white is really kind of almost sky blue because of so much blue lighting. And then bam, it picked up, but not quite right. And I started adding flesh tone to it, just a hair. And this is just in the camera settings. And boom, it makes it look all right. Well, whenever I got this camera, all I had to do was click underwater. Yeah, they had one that had fish on it because it was made to go underwater. You just set it on that and go with it, boom. But it didn't quite have the flesh tones and bringing out the pinks and things as good as it should. Sometimes it does though. So there's a Bozo clown paint with a little pink lip ring around the inside of it. It's got a double spoked effect, and you can't really make it out here, but in the inside spoke is like gold, little crimply little lines in each one of them. Look like somebody put gold foil little streaks into each one. It's another type of A-can. Alright, so let's go check something else out. And we can just go, this has got some more flower pots, so that variation's on a theme of that thing I started with. Ooh. No, I'm not going to do that. So these are a type of Zos that are known as Alpha and Omega. They get a symbol around the middle of them that's this double circle deal, even though it's made out of speckles, and a stripe running across it, bright red fringe. So it's like fire and ice, but they call them Alpha and Omega. Here's some of those Recordias. And it's a hot pink flower pot, but it doesn't show in here, but it has a yellowish golden center to it, kind of sunset. And this one is more hot pink, and this one is just, oh man, that's just beaming. And these Recordias up here, blue is real rare, but of course these oranges are fairly rare unless you know where to get them. And we're about to look at one of those clams that I showed a recent video of too that I've gotten in. But it was mainly still pictures I was showing there. God, and I stop it when it's a blur. And you can see this leopard print pattern that's on it. If I let it back up and just go over it naturally, still not so good. That's a type of hammer coral. And if they've got two colors going on rather than one, it's even more intense and worth more. And if they got more than, and if they're more neon yellow green, like what you see here in a kryptonite color, that's worth more. Well, this was sent to me as a bicolor because some of these heads have purple heads on the end of them and halves and swirls, and others don't. Also, notice how it's kind of chrysanthemum rosette headed. This is a branching form of this hammer, and there's also a form that only grows one big head, bigger, bigger, bigger. The branching form is more utilized in the reef, and it's nicer because you can take its little branch root part and stick it in between some rocks and have it stick out off of it and joggle around. But also, after it grows at least 2 inches in between where it V's from the last connective, like where they V and connect at, you can break it from right there and you can pull off individual heads. And so we would get in medium to large pieces and then crack them into 3 and 4 headed pieces and stuff for mediums. I'd still keep a large so somebody wanted one for a big old tank and a showpiece. But you can get one with 4 heads, and it'll generally double itself inside of a year. So you get 4 and then 8, and then next time it gets to 16, and you've already got that half a volleyball anyhow. Wicked. Man, these mushrooms right here. And I remember for a series of time he was telling me off South China Sea that they got some mushrooms that you wouldn't believe. And when we first started getting these, they called it pizza mushroom because it had a marbled center with some white in it and red dots around on it, and it looked like a pepperoni pizza or whatever. And then when we started getting these, just fire red. And this picture or this video doesn't even do them justice. Sunburst zoes, but these were a weird one, and we were wanting to get a different name for them, and it's the only time I ever got them in. But they're a freak. They had a peach little mouth to them with a yellow around the outside, but you can see these little blue fleckles all over around them, which doesn't come in either variation that we had before. And so that's just totally different. And depending on which chunk we got, some of the, see this right here, it's got a maroon red around it. Depending on which chunk we went from, they started looking a little different, and we started putting them in higher and lower light, and they changed, and this red center would show up in a lot of them with a little peach mouth, and other ones they wouldn't. And boom, 15 people got pieces of it, and I never saw that coral again in my life. But it's pretty wicked. Here's one of those bubble corals too. Yeah, and you can see that's that green see-through. This is called an elegance coral, kind of for a good reason there. This one is more lime green with purple tentacles to them, but we get all different kinds. It has little great tips on the end of the tentacles, and we get ones that have hot pink tips or green tips. Green tip is common. Hot yellow green versus dark green is prized, and then grape's okay, and pinks, and that's the stuff. So I'll just let it go over a few zoes here, and this right here is a poison apple chalice. Like if you sliced open the apple and it had worms all in it, poison apple chalice. And this zoe never would show, or pally would never show as well, but it's got kind of a rainbow fringe with a greenish gold ring built onto each one of the fringe bands before it reaches the body, and then this two-tone ring of pink that was just wicked. It was like purple pink, and depending on how you looked at it, it was purple pink, like it had some kind of sheen on it. That's a crystal bubble, but it had those little lines. See the lines down each bubble? So there's a lined crystal bubble and a crystal bubble. Here's more of those zoes. There's a different type, different types. That green version there, see how that's different than that poison apple. This is called an alien eye, and there was a different variation of it that was not the same type, or even genus type of the same chalice type coral, and had smaller eyes into them, known as aspera, and it's called Area 51. These are called Gatorades, and we got them going, but they're documented Gatorades, everything, but we started getting these white little points around the edge of them, and it's strange, and we call that pattern poker chip, like they have the little thing around the outside of it, because it's at what edge. Whenever you would name these things, you would name them off the ring and pattern and ring patterns and what they had. So pretty neat. Like in a minute we'll look at something. There's a fungia plate coral, another one of those giant Martian nipples. Oh, can I catch a moment of that where you can really see it? Man, I go too fast. I know I go too fast sometimes. And but it had these pink eyes around it with little pink sparkles around, blue eyes, and it's only around the eyes. We ended up fragging a piece of it and growing out flat, and it would have these pink galaxy eyes everywhere, all over it, and the background was dull. Whenever you just turn on the blue lights, you didn't see anything but pink galaxy eyes with this blue glow around them, like it literally was a galaxy and stuff. It was incredible. And these are types of acan, like the acanthastria, like that one is up there, but it's a different form, and it's known as acanthille, and it grows more flat-brained. It doesn't rumple up as much, so on. And if you kill it and look at the skeletons real close under a microscope, you can tell micro differences, and that's how they named a lot of these things, is off dead skeletons. By the way, no, in no way inducing the color or anything what it looks like when they're inflated, which is kind of sad. This over here too is Lepastria, and it's known as a Halloween Lepastria. It's not showing up here, but in between each little cluster right here are all little yellow centers to them, so it's like orange with yellow eyes. If you have a little bitty chunk where it only has 3 or 4 eyes, it looks like a jack-o'-lantern. So let's look at a few more things. Hey, let's do something different. Here, I'll show you something neat that people don't even get to see, but I used to be able to get. I think I've still got the video up to be able to be viewed. Yeah, I've got a couple on sharks. There it is. This is a pearl zebra shark from Bali. It's real skinny. This one right here is over a foot, maybe close to, not 18 inches, 12, 14 inches, something like that. Now this pattern, see if I can catch it right. I can't catch it right. This pattern is very much like what you see on a whale shark. And it's meant to kind of blotch and turn off their back. They have cat eyes to them and little bitty teeth. If you let this guy sit and chew on you, I would hold squid and little pieces of food right in front of his nose. Get him used to my electricness and going around me a few times and smell it and then track it down. Sometimes I'd poke it in the sand right in front of him, and then I'd grab another piece and be like, here you go. And I'd get him to eat off, right out of my hand and stuff. My daughter used to take ones like this and hold it in their hand and so on. They say if they're males, when they're younger, you can tell easily because they have a wider tip on them, but an easier way to tell is these two fins, and in between those will have these two little claspers that stick out like this, and females won't have those. And that's really the difference, and pretty much the difference you can see on most all sharks. And it's pretty neat. Came out of Bali, so it's a coral cat shark. You can see them listed as 2, but this is actually a variation of Maclay's pearl zebra shark that they have from right around Bali and Sulawesi, and it's the only place in the world you find that variation. Oh hell, while we're doing fish, let's see, let's go back and I'll show you something that also is rare to get in. Oh, by the way, they have a CITES permit on that fish, and there was only allowed a couple of thousand to come out of the wild each year. I used to get maybe 1 or 2 a month. People try to get them in. Leopard sharks, all kinds that you could get that you could keep in an aquarium as long as it was big enough, wide open. You had to have the environment for it. I wouldn't sell it to you if you weren't set up for it and your aquarium wasn't broke in and things like that. There's no fun in any of that, and I'd explain it to people. It pissed people off, and they'd go to another place and buy fish and kill a bunch of them, and it really ticked me off because they'd go ahead and sell it to them when your tank isn't even cycled and broke in. So let's look at a puffer fish. I used to have a couple of vids on puffers, but well, here's one of the ones I wanted to show you. Now this guy here is known as a yellow submarine puffer, and you get him out of the Indo-Pacific and through Hawaii, and I don't know if you can make it out, but right on his very top fin, the dorsal fin, you'll see black and white little blotches. Whenever this guy is younger, it's called a guinea fowl puffer, and he turns high yellow and turns solid yellow like a taxi cab, if you will, whenever he goes into breeding, and it's his xanthic form, and he stays there from there on, and he's a selected breeder. So it's like if you were Fabio when you're a kid, all of a sudden you turn yellow, and then you're a selected breeder, and others ones grow up and never have it happen at all. Females are always eligible, but males, it's a selected thing, kind of like bulls or whatever you want to say. And they don't fight. It happens naturally due to surroundings and so on. And there might be little tussles here and there, but it's just pretty much dictated as being the chosen one. Now it's got few black dots onto it, and they call it the yellow submarine puffer, so it's like the beetles. This guy puffs like your puffer that you always see with the spikes all over him, and I might have another video of that. But instead of puffing all round like that does, it's really just his bottom that puffs on him mostly, and a little bit across his shoulders. And what's neat about this style of puffer, which there's a lot of different styles of puffer. What's neat about this one, whenever he puffs, and all in the same family, is whenever they swell up, they get a chicken bump effect onto them, which is real fine all over them, denticles, and it's like Velcro. It's like not the fuzzy part, the other part of Velcro, exactly. I mean, you could literally puff them up and stick them to Velcro on it and everything, which is neat. And it, so he's gorgeous little fish here. There's a soldier fish that was in there near him. That is a Naso tang. And I don't know if it'll show again, so let's see if I can catch this. Can't really. It's a blonde Naso tang, or no, this is a Naso tang from Hawaii and all the way into Bali. From Bali, farther anywhere you want to go towards the Red Sea and Indian Ocean area, you're going to see where this yellow, instead of being just here, is actually all the way down the fin. It's just a slight variation, but amazingly, there's a set of islands where this kind stops and the other starts at. There is no mixing. It's a type of unicorn fish, that Naso tang, and instead of being a true regular tang like the yellow tang you usually see, which is just a solid yellow sun, he has this one little spike on his tail, which makes him legally that surgeon fish. The unicorn tangs have two on either side, and they're more hooked. And he's in that same family that the unicorn tang is, that has a little bump on their forehead that turns him into that unicorn fish that people talked about. So he's a gorgeous little guy here. Let's look at a few more fish. What's this? I've got a puffer and Bartlett's Anthias. Now, Bartlett's Anthias come from Hawaii and Marshall Islands, and they're going to be this peachy and yellow color, and you'll see them in big exhibits, and you have to have a big tank to keep them in it. Males will turn dark peach or more like this and get a swipper top fin. This is like the yellow tang, but this is a Scopus tang, and he literally has a chocolate mocha appearance across him, and that little white dash there is his scalpel. If he wants to fight you, he pops it at him. And these guys with these blue eyes on them are blue-eyed cardinal fish, and they only come from some select islands through South China Sea. And they're coming right up to me. Now, this guy here is a dog-faced puffer, and I've caught him at a little the wrong moment. See if I can catch it. Yeah, so a little bit better. And if you look, he's got the spots on him and everything. He is that same puffer, right? But instead, he grows this little bandito mask on his face and a darker spot onto him. And if he was really facing you head on, almost face down a little bit, he has an appearance that looks like, oh, a pit bulldog or something like that. That's pretty neat. So, hand-feeding hummingbirds, that's cool. We should watch that instead. So let's go back to corals and pick something else, and let's see, where am I at? Yeah, I'm going to go just a little bit longer if y'all aren't bored with it yet. And we only looked at a couple of these videos that I've got going. So I'll show you something rare. I know this one's got a rare in it. I can see it in the picture. And you can see somebody else has those scullies, like what are shown here, and the different variations of them. These are rare forms of them. This guy's here is a donut about the size of a baseball. This thing right here is about not quite the size of a volleyball cut in half. And it's a different type. This is Scolemia australis. This is Scolemia vitensis. Now they've changed their name to Acanthops ophelia, which is stupid as anything. Never mind. But the striping you get in these sometimes in bumpled form. And this one has blue, turquoise, bright red and green center onto it. Quite exotic. And this is a short video, only 28 seconds, so I'm only highlighting a couple of videos. Now this is a closer relative of it known as Cinerina. And this was an extremely rare form of it too, where I get pink Cinerinas sometimes and reddish forms. This one was peach in about 3/4 of its body, going to purple but had a blue center. And there are areas on here that are just orange peach. Peach, 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 peach. One of my employees couldn't let it go. We put a decent price on it. It didn't buy over the weekend, and I let them go ahead and take it. And afterwards, it all turned to golden peach. And then the highlights were red background, and it got stronger. And oh God, it was just incredible. But it's more blown up like a balloon coral type thing. Okay, this is neat. This is called a frog spawn coral. And if you've ever seen frog eggs, it looks like frog spawn. Now this is like the hammer coral that we were looking at before, that branches and so on, but this only makes one big head. It's called cristata, and the neat part about cristata is that it's all clear and only the little bumples on it, and so it literally looks like frog spawn. And you can see that it's just boom. But you can see down inside, because it's clear, of each one, see this slit? That's its bone plate growth that's happening for its tube. I caught it at just the right moment. That's a good shot of a cristata. That's just a little bitty thing. Now this is that hammer, kind of like the rosette hammer we were looking at that was green and bicolored grape, but this is one single head, and this has a special form of anchor to where they're bent like an anchor onto it, and this is a rainbow form where the tips on it are pink, purple, and coppery colored. The copper color's not showing, but it's real shiny, and some of them have a bright purple rim right around that peach color. And they waver in the current. I pretty much cut off the current on the aquariums to take these pictures. So it's literally just whenever I'm making current moving by that things like this are happening or whatever. I want to get at least another video that's got some length of time in it. This is a minute long. Saw some zoes on there that are real neat. It's kaleidoscopes. There's some King Midas zoes. It wouldn't stop for me. This is a Miami Hurricane chalice, and it has Miami Hurricane colors, but can you tell from there it gets a little gold rim right around the red eye, reddish orange eye, salmon colored eye. Well, whenever they first start out, this doesn't have one on it. It usually starts out green and then it changes that color. It's one other way you can tell it's definitely that. Wonder Woman zoes. These are called magicians. They're a solid red and they have a blue speckled center to them that looks magical. Those are called solid golds. This one right here is called a KO. And then the rest of them are pretty much BS ones that I had to buy to get the cool ones. I sell the BS ones for cheap. Kaleidoscope or multicolor eagle eyes. This pattern is known as an eagle eye, and if you look, I've got some that are red, some that are gold, some that are that, and it's all blended together. This one has streaks all into it, and depending on what lighting you get certain things to come out of them. Generally, people put them in too much light, and they really just all turn red-ringed like this, and sometimes get a blur on them. If you put them in too low a light, they'll just gold out and look like a totally different zoe. It's weird, and only on the crest, right up in the light, will they get that same appearance. King Midas. It's a type of galaxia. Those are known as outer space. Kryptonite cat's eyes, and they call these Valentine's Day massacres. You can see this cat's eye, it grows out on little branches, and as it grows, it'll do a figure eight and split into two, and it'll grow another branch. It grows its own skeleton out of calcium, just like us, and you can break it off loose from there, and then you have one separate, and I can sell that to you, or the whole colony. Generally, I was always trying to sell the whole colony. It looks so much better, and you really want that, and I'm going to give you a deal on that versus if you make me pick it to death. Cool, sometimes I'd get a mix, and when you get the mix together, other things would happen. These were emeralds, right? And these are called Celtic frost, but they have a ring around on them. The emeralds don't. Whenever you put the emeralds around them and they grow with them, these grow it, and they get the frost better even than they do in the Celtic frost. Okay, so we're hitting it, guys. Yeah, thanks for taking a look at it and stuff, and I'll go on to some more and do a few more, and every once in a while throw